Welcome to another video from DIY Daily. Just got a full step-by-step guide just showing you how to replace the water pump and auxiliary belt on this 2017 Range Rover Evoque. It's a 2 litre Ingenium engine, and you can use this same video if you're replacing the water pump on the Discovery Sport as well. I'll just show you before we get into the video. Got the parts that we're using. We've got genuine Jaguar Land Rover water pump, got new auxiliary belt, so you don't have to replace the water pump, check the condition of it, but while taking the pump off, it's always nice to replace the belt at the same time. If you check the links in the description below, I'll put links to all the parts used, all the tools and all the torque settings as well. Now I'll just run you through a few bits on the water pump, just what some of these electric bits are. And the issue that we're having with this vehicle is it's actually overheating. It appears that the coolant's not circulating. There's no faults on the dash or anything like that, but there is a quick check that we can do with the diagnostic machine, which I'll just run you through in a minute. But I'll just run you through some of these bits on the pump, just how they work. Then we'll get the diagnostic machine plugged on and just show you how we can check some of the functions as well, just before getting started. So basically with these electric style water pumps, like the pretty much the same as like the VAG group stuff, they've got the main impeller piece there, but they actually have this shield on it there, which is operated by the solenoid piece just there. And what that does is the solenoid operates and it actually pulls the shield over the fins there so that the vehicle can get hotter quicker and get it up to temperature. But there's another sensor on this one which I've not seen on any of the VAG group vehicles, but you can see the sensor comes down and it just locates into the back there, and this is actually a position sensor for the shield to know that the position that it's in. And we'll just get the vehicle plugged in and I'll just run you through a check that you can do just to try and confirm the position of this shield, which will just help you diagnose the fault or attempt to diagnose it if you're having a similar issue. Right, so just in the vehicle, we're using the top-down diagnostic machine. Now, I've already done a full scan. You can see there's loads of fault codes in here. It has got some separate issues, none of it which is relating to the issue we're having with the water pump. So you've got one in the ABS there. There's a few different random codes. There is a code in the engine control module which is to do with the knock sensor. These are all different issues that we need to still look into on another day. But basically, with a scanner, as long as you've got a scanner that will read fault codes and read the actual data, if you go into the engine control module on this one, we're using the top-down Phoenix Lite 2, which those of you that watch the channel, they'll know we've been using this scanner for a little while now. And we've got data stream on there. I'll just search through just to narrow it down a bit quicker. You can just see, because I've already checked these already, I've sort of got them highlighted already. But we've got a couple of options for reading the auxiliary engine pump. You can see what's commanded, and then we've got the actuator position and the voltage as well. So if we go into there at the minute, we can see what it's commanding of the sleeve piece that goes over it. See the voltage at the sensor, and then we can see the actual position of the sensor at the minute. So at the minute it's commanding it to be at 0%. You can see it's actually at 63%, so it's not fully open or fully closed. It's sort of, what I would say is happening with this, and what I've seen in the past before, is they come out and they jam and it's not quite released, so it's stuck at the minute, sort of half over it. So if we just strike it up now, we'll just see if we can get that to alter at all. See at the minute, just striking that up, we've just give it a little rev just to get things moving, but it's trying to command now, obviously just shy of 100% there. It has picked up the position's gone to 100%, and hopefully this will do it like this to while I'm doing it on the video now. But what's been happening is I get it to this stage and then you turn it off, the command drops down to 0, but the position stays in the 100%, which is obviously with a sleeve over the pump. So I'll explain why it's not actually pumping the coolant round. So if we just turn it off and just give it a minute, the command should drop down. So just put the ignition back on again, just so it's reading correctly, but it's commanding 0% and the position is still stuck at 100%. Now it was last time I plugged it in, just about half an hour ago, but as I've left it and come back to it, it dropped to that 67%. So I should say the sleeve's coming back and it's just cockling and just stuck in that sort of halfway point. So it just gives it, if you've got a diagnostic machine, it gives a good indication. It's a nice little check just to do, just to give you some sort of idea whether that is likely to be the fault or not. So but just thought I'd run you through that on this machine, just showing you it's a nice little check that you can do quickly. So but we'll just crack on now, get the vehicle up in the air and just run you through everything a step at a time. Now we're using a 2-poster ramp to do the job. It's not too bad to do without a ramp though. If you're not using a ramp, all I'd say is really just jack it up as high as you can on this side. Just put an axle stand under it. You just really need a bit of access to just get this wheel off, take the arch liner off and the under tray as well. But with it jacked up, you can still access most of it quite well. So but we'll just get it up in the air now, get the wheel off and run you through everything a step at a time. Right, so now that we've got the wheel off, the next thing we need to do is just take this inner arch liner off. Just gives you loads of access to it. The arch liner is quite simple to get off. It should just be, we've got a couple of Phillips screws, just one there, another one there, and then we've got a lot of these little 10mm plastic nuts all the way around, a few different areas, just tucked around the outside. What I'll do is I'll just get this arch liner off, and if there's anything different to the main bits that I've said, I'll just let you know. But there is, I think there might just be as well, but again I'll let you know afterwards. Once you're taking the arch liner off, you might just need to be a bit careful. Some of these just have some of the clips attached to the wiring clips attached to the back of the liner as well. So, but I'll let you know as soon as we've got that off. And then once we've got the arch liner off, then the only next thing we'll do is just take the under tray off as well. Just when we drop the coolant out, we'll be able to put the catch tray underneath it then. But the under tray is just held on with loads of these little 10mm bolts, that's all. So we'll just pull them off and then run you on to the next step after that. Right, so I've now got the arch liner off. I've just got the under tray to take off as well. As I said, it's just them 10mm bolts. Just thought I'd run you through. Now the under tray does come off as just the front section, so you don't actually need to undo the back piece, other than there is just a Phillips screw there which goes through both pieces. Then the arch liner comes round the back, and you just need to undo the plastic 10mm nut from this one, because this arch liner slots round the back and this one claps over the top of it. But there is on this side, you just need to remove this trim. This trim's just held on with some blue plastic clips there. It does pop out quite easy. You can see this one's actually been damaged a bit in the past, but there is just a little locating hole just up there, and the arch liner actually tucks in. It's just got a little plastic rivet, just that style there. You can see the idea is you should just be able to use a Phillips screwdriver, undo the centre screw, which is like the pin for the rivet, and it should come out a little bit easier, but they never come out very well, so just had to gently pry this one out with a screwdriver. As soon as that's out, you can just start to pry. It's a little bit tight, you can pry the arch liner out from the bottom and just pull it out on this side, and then you should be able to slot it out. So but now that that's out of the way, you can see the auxiliary belt, and we can see the water pump quite nicely now, decent bit of access to it. The next thing we're going to need to do is remove the auxiliary belt. And just before you remove an auxiliary belt, it's always a good idea to just take a note of it, take a picture, or just do a quick simple drawing of it. It's just once you've got it off and you come to refitting it, it can be quite hard sometimes to remember the right routing. But what I will do is just overlay over the video the auto data routing of the belt as well, so you've got that to refer to. But the next thing I'm going to do to get the belt off, quite straightforward. We've just got a Torx headed slot there. You're going to need a T55 Torx socket. You can basically put that in there, slot that in. and we're basically just going to turn this in the clockwise direction. And you don't have to, but you can pin it up. As we turn it, the belt will be slack and you'll be able to remove the belt. But as you turn it, there is just a little locating hole just there. And you can't quite see it, but just over the top here, there's a little bit of a groove slot cut out bit in the tensioner, and you can actually slot a little pin just in between it. I'm just going to use that there just to lock it, and it'll lock it in the sort of open position, and that way when you come to refitting the belt, it's just nice and easy. You can route it round, take the tension off, release the pin, and then release it fully. So, but what I'll do is I'll just take the tension off now, I'll put the pin in, and then I'll show you where it locks off. And once we've done that, we'll take the tensioner out of the way. And just one little job that I'm just going to do just before taking the tension off the belt as well. Now, you don't have to do this, but we need to remove these 10 mils from the centre of the water pump pulley. Obviously, I'm not going to take them fully out at the minute, but it is an ideal time just to crack them off. While the belt's on, there's a little bit of tension on the pulley. You should find if they've not been done up too tight, if it's the original ones, the torque setting won't be that high, and we should be able to crack these off quite easily with a screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is just give them a quick crack off so they're loose. Once we've got the tension off, it'll just make it a little bit easier to remove them. That's all. It doesn't matter if you don't. If you don't, you tend to find you might have to just sort of lock the pulley with a screwdriver a little bit while you crack them off. That's all. So we'll just do that next. As you can see just there, the bolt's cracked off really easy. Just give them literally half a turn just off, just to loosen them slightly. And then I've put the slack in the tensioner. Now that I've done that, the belt's nice and slack, it'll be easy to get off. I've just used a pin. I've just dropped that on the pin, so I've just used this. It's just a little drive there, but it's all it is. Any sort of metal pin, you can use a little drill bit or anything, and just in that slot there, and it just goes straight through the back, just into that little hole at the back. And that'll hold the tensioner in that position there, so we can take the belt off. So just get the belt off now. And we've got a new auxiliary belt tonight, but while the belt's off, you really want to just have a look at it. If you aren't changing it, so it's definitely worth inspecting it. And the way to check it would be turn it inside out, and if you pinch it up, and when it's worn, you get loads of little cracks in it where it goes all perished. And you can see this one's, sometimes they split right across them, but this one is just starting to perish. You can just see in the grooves there, it's quite cracked up. So it's well worth having one to replace it at the same time tonight. But now that that's out of the way, next thing I'm going to need to do, just to get the actual pump out, I might just move this little wire. I wouldn't normally do it, but just for filming, just so it's not in the way, I might just pull out the clip and just tuck that aside. But we're going to need to remove the tensioner. You just need to undo this centre bolt there. So you've got T50 torque socket for it, and this tensioner bracket actually holds the idler pulley there as well. It's just with this on, you can't quite get the water pump out there. But once we've got that off, we'll just take the pulley off the water pump as well. Now with the tensioner out of the way, really straightforward to get off. It's not too hard to get it wrong, but it does actually have a little locator. You just need to make sure that that actually locates just into that little locating hole there as well when you're refitting it. But now that that's out of the way, we'll just undo them 3 10 mils, just get that pulley off the water pump. I'll just show you as well. It's not quite ideal, probably could have done with a thicker pin on there, but that little shaft there, all it's doing is just locking against that and into that hole there. Really a little bit thicker pin or a drill bit might have just held that a little bit better, that's all. But you can see it looks like it's resting on that pulley, but it's actually just on it, that's all. And just see, we're cracking them bolts off earlier on, it just made it loads easier. They were just finger tight and you could just wind them straight out. Again, when I'm refitting that, I'll put that on, I'll nip them up as tight as I can there, and when the belt's on, just give them another little nip as well. But I'll run you through the torque setting for these when we're putting it back together. So that's the pulley out of the way. Right, so now the pulley's out of the way, the next thing we're going to do, we just need to remove these two connectors. Now both of them have got little locking tabs. Might be a little bit hard to get the camera in and sort of show you while I'm doing it, but basically you just need to work them back, and then when it's back you can pinch it in to get the connector out. See, this one's got one there as well. Once it's back, just pinch it up and get it out. The red one's a little bit tight, I might just have to put the camera down to do that. So, but I'll just get them two disconnected and they're out of the way, and once we've done that we're ready to start undoing the water pump and drop it out. Obviously when we undo the water pump we will lose quite a lot of coolant will come out. But basically to undo it, we've just got these little 8mm bolts. I think there's 6 of them holding it in all together, but I'll let you know once I've got it out. Now I've just got like a catch tray to put underneath it to drop the coolant in. Now some people might say to drop the coolant out the hoses from the radiator and drop it all down. You can do, there's a few different ways that you can do it. You don't have to do it like this. It's just I'm not going to be replacing all the coolant tonight. The water pump's quite high up, so I'm just going to do it at this level and just catch what comes out to this point. Obviously once we've done everything we're going to need to top it up and bleed it up, but we'll run you through that once we get there. So, but once we've got that connector out now, I'll just undo all these 8mm bolts just around the outside, and then we'll get the pump out. Now you might find, I don't think they're too bad on these for seizing in, but if you do undo the bolts you might find it's a little bit tight, and you might need to just gently pry against any of the sort of lugs that are just raised out like that there, just to crack it away from the back, that's all. So, but we'll just undo them all now and get the pump off. Right, so that's the water pump out. Didn't come out too bad. Just found the bottom 4 bolts could quite easily get out with the battery ratchet, just with the 8mm, just with a sort of deep one on it. The top 2 are a little bit tight because there's a water pipe in the way. Just found the 8mm ratchet spanner, made them a little bit easier to get the top 2 out, that's all. Now on these, all the bolts are the same size, so it doesn't matter about keeping them in order and anything like that. But if you're a little bit unsure, it's quite good practice when you're taking your bolts out of a water pump just to put them in the order that you took them out, that's all. But the suspicions was right with the fan there, and what we was checking with the diagnostic machine, the readings that was picked up from the position sensor were correct as well. You can just see at the minute that sort of jammed in about the sort of 50% area, sort of half on the fins, not quite fully back there, whereas compared to the new pump, when it's in the fully back position, you can just see it's right back to the flat bit at the bottom of the pump there, whereas on that one you've still got a bit of the lip there, and obviously it's just not going back all the way, so it's basically just coming out and jamming on, and then while it's stuck over the fins it can't pump the coolant round and can't keep the engine cool. So what we're going to do now, I'll just show you as well, just on the old pump you can just see you can't really refit these without a new seal on. The seal a new seal comes with a pump, but you can just see just how flatted off that seal is there as well. Whereas on the new pump, it's quite raised at the minute. Ready as we refit it, and it'll crush that up. But the pump does have a little dowel on it as well, just to locate it, which is always quite nice. Just sort of locates it into place nicely, just so you can put your bolts in, wind them up finger tight, and then we can torque them up correctly. So all I'm going to do now is just locate the pump into place. Just going to wind all 6 bolts in, just finger tight, then I'll run you through the torque setting for them after that. Just before refitting the pump, the only thing you want to do is just have a quick look around, just see the condition of where your pump's going to mount up to. This one's not too bad, but I'll just give it a quick clean round with the rag. If that was had any sort of raised, scabby bits right like that on it, I'd probably just gently run a razor blade edge around it just to clean that out. But I'm just simply going to clean that up with a rag just before refitting the pump, just to make sure it gets a good seal, that's all. Torque setting for the main water pump bolts is 12 Newton meters for the 6 bolts. I'm just going to run round the bottom 4. I've just given the top 2 a little bit more of a nip at the minute. I'm just going to run round the bottom 4, torque them correctly to 12 Newton meters. Then I'm going to have to hand nip the top 2 with a ratchet spanner, because I just can't quite get in there with the torque wrench, that's all. So just run through this, torque them up, then we'll put the pulley on, running through the torque settings for that. Now, if you haven't got a torque wrench, you don't have to torque it up. It's obviously recommended to torque it up correctly, but 12 Newton meters isn't that much. It's just a bit more than a light nip, really. Now I'm just going to put the coolant pump pulley on. Torque settings for these bolts is 25 Newton meters. Now I can't really torque them up at the minute. All I'm going to do is put these in, just get them as tight as I can by hand, just give them a little bit of a nip while holding the pulley. The best thing to do is, once the auxiliary belt's on, probably lock it, or if you lock against the bolts with a screwdriver, and then just try and torque them up correctly then. But the torque settings 25 Newton meters. So just put that on there. Right, so the coolant pump's all on now, it's all torqued up. Obviously we just hand nip these at the minute. We'll nip them properly once the belt's on. But at this stage now, the cooling system's sealed again, so you can, if you want, just top the header tank up, just top it up to the max, and just give it a chance, it'll just help it just push a little bit of air out while you're finishing off and building everything up. But the next thing we're going to do is just reconnect the 2 connectors, connect them back up. I'm just going to refit the tensioner there, just rebuild everything exactly as we took it apart, put the belt on, and once the belt's on, we'll drop it back down, and then we'll run you through bleeding it up. Before I finish the job, I'll always leave like the arch liner off so that we can run it up, just have a quick look at it while it's running, just make sure the water pump's all sealed up, make sure it's not leaking. It's always nice just to check the belt when it's running as well, just make sure it's on all the pulleys. So, but just for now, I'll just speed through putting the tensioner on, getting the belt on. I'll just show you once the belt's on, and we'll run through a step after that. So when refitting the tensioner, just make sure you line the dowel up there. So next thing now, just going to refit the auxiliary belt, and just make sure with your belt, while you've got it on, just make sure you nicely round all the ribs or all the pulleys. If you're not careful and you get it overriding any of them, when you strike it up, you might damage the belt. It might start to ride it off onto the outside, or even worse, it could run it to the inside and just get wrapped around the back of some of the pulleys. So, but yeah, just get it routed round next. Right, so just so you've got the belt routed round there, just had a good check. It's located right in and on all the ribs of all the pulleys, all the way around. You just see, obviously, at the minute, it's still slack because we've got the pin in the tensioner there. So all we're going to do now is just load up the ratchet on that, take the pin out and back it off. And once it's off again, we'll just have another quick look round to make sure it's around the ribs correctly. Now, obviously, the flat pulleys with a flat surface, usually the back of the belt will run on them, but it does have a pulley here where actually the ribbed side of it has been run, that does run actually on that side of it, and it is slightly grooved, but you can just see the old groove marks where it's been running like that before as well, so it can just be a bit misleading sometimes. So tension's back on now, just so it looks absolutely spot on. Just had a good look around the ribs there, just clip that loom back in as well. And just as that was the little piece where it just clips on the back of the arch liner, that's all there. So we'll do that when we're refitting it. Just now the belt's on, we're just going to nip them pulley bolts to 25 Newton meters. You might find it's a little bit awkward, you might spin the pump a little bit, but you can just sort of sometimes just put a bit of weight against it just to grab it, or you say might need to just pry against the bolts to lock it if not. But just for now, we'll drop it back down, get some coolant in it, and just run you through bleeding it up. So we've got the header tank for the coolant here. Now obviously the coolant header tank's got a black plastic top on it, so you can't see through that section clearly, but the bottom of it is clear, and you can see it's got just see through the bit there, it's got a min and a max on it. And all you want to do is just keep, see it's empty at the minute, just top it up. We've got some red antifreeze for it, top it right up. You can go a little bit above the max because I know it's going to drop a little bit. We don't really want to be going too high in case, obviously don't want to leave it too high. So, but if you keep filling it up to the max and letting it settle and then topping it up, just do that for a little bit, just till it pushes most of the sort of air out that it will get out just through filling it up. And then once it's kind of settled at a bit of a level, what we're going to do is I'll just show you the, we'll get in the car and just show you what settings to put it on. Run it up to temp. I don't think there's any separate, some vehicles have bleed screws on it and some of the pipes or something like the thermostat housing or the radiator often's where you can just, a little bleed screw you can take out to force the air out. I don't think these actually have anything. If I do come across where a bleed screw is, I'll write in the description below, but this method will bleed it up as well. But basically we're just going to be running it up with the cap off. I'm going to put the temperature up in the car, so we'll run through that in a minute. I'll just get some coolant in it first, then we'll run through the settings in the car. It's just filled the header tank up there now. Next thing we're going to do is just get in the car and strike it up. It's always worth, when you do first strike it up, just come and have a quick check. Just make sure it sounds okay to start with. Just be prepared to turn it off if something doesn't sound right. But once you've struck it up, just come and check your auxiliary belt and just make sure it looks like it's running true. But we'll just get in the car quick. So you can just see there the auxiliary belt was running nice and true. Next thing we're going to do, we're just going to put the temperature up. It's already on high, on full heat, so you really want it on full heat. You don't have to have the blower quite on full, but basically what we're looking to do is get it up to temperature. Keep just checking it, make sure that the coolant gets up to temp on the dash if you've got a gauge, and once you're getting hot air in the cab, that's a sign that coolant's got around most of the system and it's circulating, it's working properly. But you need to keep your eye on the header tank, keep the coolant topped up to that max line, but do want to turn your air con off as well. You'll be listening, once it gets to temperature it will cut the cooling fan in as well, but if you've got your air con on, the fan will operate for the air con, so really want to leave your air con off there as well. So but we're just going to leave that running now. It will take a little while to get it up to temp, and once what I've done with this one, once I've got it all at temperature, I'll just plug the diagnostic machine back in and just look at the operation of that valve and just make sure it's working correctly. But as you can see, that's the basic procedure for replacing the water pump. It's not too bad to do on these. There's quite a bit of room for access on them. Obviously it runs on the auxiliary belt, which is a bit nicer than when they run on the cam belt and having to do the cam belt. So, but I'll just speed through this bit while we get it up to temp, and I'll just, if you're interested, I'll just carry on and I'll just show you checking that the actuator with the diagnostic machine at the end as well. So I'm just going to bleed it up now, keep an eye on it, rebuild the arch liner once I know that it's not leaking and everything, and then we'll get you back on to plugging the diagnostic machine in. Right, so everything's built back up now. I just left the engine running while I was doing it. The arch liner's on, the under tray's on, the wheels all back on and all torqued up. And just every now and again, just kept checking the level on the header tank just to make sure it's set right. It's still just set on the max, bit hard to show you, but it's just set on the max line there, which is where I want it at this stage now. I've just been checking now and again on the inside. The blowers are blowing nice and warm now, so I'm fairly happy that all the air's out the cooling system. I'm going to put the cap on now, and really it's ideal to give it a run, let it settle, let it cool down, and then you really want to be checking your level when it's cooled. And you might find if it does just drop a little bit when you're driving, obviously just want to be just stopping and just topping it up as well once it's cooled down. So we'll put the cap on now. Just going to get back in the cab and I'll just show you with the data on the diagnostic machine, just see what it looks like on that valve now. Right, so now we can just see the commanded is 0%. I'm not quite sure exactly how this reads on the diagnostic machine. It might just be basically 0% for off and 100% for on, or vice versa. And then for the commanded, and then the actual position will obviously measure quite accurately, because obviously when it was stuck in like the midway, it was stuck on about 60% there. So we can see now we're on just shy of 100% there. And it shows the voltage as well. Obviously I selected that as an option, but it's just without the diagnostic machine, the only way to check it would have been to physically remove the pump and have a look. This just gives you a nice, bit of information to refer to, and just gives you a little bit more confidence when you're taking the pump that you're going to find a fault with it as well. So, but yeah, I hope the video helped. If it did, give it a quick thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in any of the parts or tools used, don't forget to check out the description below. There's plenty of other videos on the channel you might want to check out as well. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.